Welcome to English Tutor. In this video, we are presenting an easy, memorable approach to English grammar. Action verbs. We know there are 4 forms of verbs: present, past, past participle, and present participle, also called as V1, V2, V3, and V4. Now let's look at some examples. Love, loved, loved, loving. Run, ran, run, running. Write, wrote, written, writing. Now let's start learning all tenses in English language. Present tense. This is how we form present tense in English. Subject plus V1. All you need to do is practice. Now let's see how to form affirmative, negative, interrogative and negative interrogative sentences. I love. I do not love. Do I love? Do I not love? You love. You do not love. Do you love? Do you not love? He loves. He does not love. Does he love? Does he not love? She loves. She does not love. Does she love? Does she not love? It loves. It does not love. Does it love? Does it not love? We love. We do not love. Do we love? Do we not love? You love. You do not love. Do you love? Do you not love? They love. They do not love. Do they love? Do they not love? Example sentences. I love her. I do not love her. Do I love her? Do I not love her? Past tense. Subject plus V2. I loved. I did not love. Did I love? Did I not love? You loved. You did not love. Did you love? Did you not love? He loved. He did not love. Did he love? Did he not love? She loved. She did not love. Did she love? Did she not love? It loved. It did not love. Did it love? Did it not love? We loved. We did not love. Did we love? Did we not love? You loved. You did not love. Did you love? Did you not love? They loved. They did not love. Did they love? Did they not love? Example sentences. I loved her. I did not love her. Did I love her? Did I not love her? Future tense. Subject plus shall or will plus V1. I shall love. I shall not love. Shall I love? Shall I not love? You will love. You will not love. Will you love? Will you not love? He will love. He will not love. Will he love? Will he not love? She will love. She will not love. Will she love? Will she not love? It will love. It will not love. Will it love? Will it not love? We shall love. We shall not love. Shall we love? Shall we not love? You will love. You will not love. Will you love? Will you not love? They will love. They will not love. Will they love? Will they not love? Example sentences. I shall love her. I shall not love her. Shall I love her? Shall I not love her? Present continuous tense. Subject plus am is are plus V4. I am loving. I am not loving. Am I loving? Am I not loving? You are loving. You are not loving. Are you loving? Are you not loving? He is loving. He is not loving. Is he loving? Is he not loving? She is loving. She is not loving. Is she loving? Is she not loving? It is loving. It is not loving. Is it loving? Is it not loving? We are loving. We are not loving. Are we loving? Are we not loving? You are loving. You are not loving. Are you loving? Are you not loving? They are loving. They are not loving. Are they loving? Are they not loving? Example sentences. I am loving her. I am not loving her. Am I loving her? Am I not loving her? Past continuous tense. Subject plus was, were plus V4. I was loving. I was not loving. Was I loving? Was I not loving? You were loving. You were not loving. Were you loving? Were you not loving? He was loving. He was not loving. Was he loving? Was he not loving? She was loving. She was not loving. Was she loving? Was she not loving? It was loving. It was not loving. Was it loving? Was it not loving? We were loving. We were not loving. Were we loving? Were we not loving? You were loving. You were not loving. Were you loving? Were you not loving? They were loving. They were not loving. Were they loving? Were they not loving? Example sentences. I was loving her. I was not loving her. Was I loving her? Was I not loving her? Future continuous tense. Subject plus shall or will plus be plus V4. I shall be loving. I shall not be loving. Shall I be loving? Shall I not be loving? You will be loving. You will not be loving. Will you be loving? Will you not be loving? He will be loving. He will not be loving. Will he be loving? Will he not be loving? She will be loving. She will not be loving. Will she be loving? Will she not be loving? It will be loving. It will not be loving. Will it be loving? Will it not be loving? We shall be loving. We shall not be loving. Shall we be loving? Shall we not be loving? You will be loving. You will not be loving. Will you be loving? Will you not be loving? They will be loving. They will not be loving. Will they be loving? Will they not be loving? Example sentences. I shall be loving her. I shall not be loving her. Shall I be loving her? Shall I not be loving her? Present perfect tense. Subject plus have or has plus V3. I have loved. I have not loved. Have I loved? Have I not loved? You have loved. You have not loved. Have you loved? Have you not loved? He has loved. He has not loved. Has he loved? Has he not loved? She has loved. She has not loved. Has she loved? Has she not loved? It has loved. It has not loved. Has it loved? Has it not loved? We have loved. We have not loved. Have we loved? Have we not loved? You have loved. You have not loved. Have you loved? Have you not loved? They have loved. They have not loved. Have they loved? Have they not loved? Example sentences. I have loved her. I have not loved her. Have I loved her? Have I not loved her? Past perfect tense. Subject plus had plus V3. I had loved. I had not loved. Had I loved? Had I not loved? You had loved. You had not loved. Had you loved? Had you not loved? He had loved. He had not loved. Had he loved? Had he not loved? She had loved. She had not loved. Had she loved? Had she not loved? It had loved. It had not loved. Had it loved? Had it not loved? We had loved. We had not loved. Had we loved? Had we not loved? You had loved. You had not loved. Had you loved? Had you not loved? They had loved. They had not loved. Had they loved? Had they not loved? Example sentences. I had loved her. I had not loved her. Had I loved her? Had I not loved her? Future perfect tense. Subject plus shall or will plus have plus V3. I shall have loved. I shall not have loved. Shall I have loved? Shall I not have loved? You will have loved. You will not have loved. Will you have loved? Will you not have loved? He will have loved. He will not have loved. Will he have loved? Will he not have loved? She will have loved. She will not have loved. Will she have loved? Will she not have loved? It will have loved. It will not have loved. Will it have loved? Will it not have loved? We shall have loved. We shall not have loved. Shall we have loved? Shall we not have loved? You will have loved. You will not have loved. Will you have loved? Will you not have loved? They will have loved. They will not have loved. Will they have loved? Will they not have loved? Example sentences. I shall have loved her. I shall have not loved her. Shall I have loved her? Shall I not have loved her? Present perfect continuous tense. Subject plus have or has plus been plus before. I have been loving. I have not been loving. Have I been loving? Have I not been loving? You have been loving. You have not been loving. Have you been loving? Have you not been loving? He has been loving. He has not been loving. Has he been loving? Has he not been loving? She has been loving. She has not been loving. Has she been loving? Has she not been loving? It has been loving. It has not been loving. Has it been loving? Has it not been loving? We have been loving. We have not been loving. Have we been loving? Have we not been loving? You have been loving. You have not been loving. Have you been loving? Have you not been loving? They have been loving. They have not been loving. Have they been loving? Have they not been loving? Example sentences. I have been loving her. I have not been loving her. Have I been loving her? Have I not been loving her? Past perfect continuous tense. Subject plus had plus been plus before. I had been loving. I had not been loving. Had I been loving? Had I not been loving? You had been loving. You had not been loving. Had you been loving? Had you not been loving? He had been loving. He had not been loving. Had he been loving? Had he not been loving? She had been loving. She had not been loving. Had she been loving? Had she not been loving? It had been loving. It had not been loving. Had it been loving? Had it not been loving? We had been loving. We had not been loving. Had we been loving? Had we not been loving? You had been loving. You had not been loving. Had you been loving? Had you not been loving? They had been loving. They had not been loving. Had they been loving? Had they not been loving? Example sentences. I had been loving her. I had not been loving her. Had I been loving her? Had I not been loving her? Future perfect continuous tense. Subject plus shall or will plus have plus been plus before. I shall have been loving. I shall not have been loving. Shall I have been loving? Shall I not have been loving? You will have been loving. You will not have been loving. Will you have been loving? Will you not have been loving? He will have been loving. He will not have been loving. Will he have been loving? Will he not have been loving? She will have been loving. She will not have been loving. Will she have been loving? Will she not have been loving? It will have been loving. It will not have been loving. Will it have been loving? Will it not have been loving? We shall have been loving. We shall not have been loving. Shall we have been loving? Shall we not have been loving? You will have been loving. You will not have been loving. Will you have been loving? Will you not have been loving? They will have been loving. They will not have been loving. Will they have been loving? Will they not have been loving? Example sentences. I shall have been loving her. I shall not have been loving her. Shall I have been loving her? Shall I not have been loving her? Let's move on to passive voice. In passive voice, the subject becomes the object and the object becomes the subject. Passive voice, present tense. Subject plus am is are plus V3. I am loud. I am not loud. Am I loud? Am I not loud? You are loud. You are not loud. Are you loud? Are you not loud? He is loud. He is not loud. Is he loud? Is he not loud? She is loud. She is not loud. Is she loud? Is she not loud? It is loud. It is not loud. Is it loud? Is it not loud? We are loud. We are not loud. Are we loud? Are we not loud? You are loud. You are not loud. Are you loud? Are you not loud? They are loud. They are not loud. Are they loud? Are they not loud? Example sentences. I am loved by her. I am not loved by her. Am I loved by her? Am I not loved by her? Passive voice, past tense. Subject plus was verb plus V3. I was loud. I was not loud. Was I loud? Was I not loud? You were loud. You were not loud. Were you loud? Were you not loud? He was loud. He was not loud. Was he loud? Was he not loud? She was loud. She was not loud. Was she loud? Was she not loud? It was loud. It was not loud. Was it loud? Was it not loud? We were loud. We were not loud. Were we loud? Were we not loud? You were loud. You were not loud. Were you loud? Were you not loud? They were loud. They were not loud. Were they loud? Were they not loud? Example sentences. I was loved by her. I was not loved by her. Was I loved by her? Was I not loved by her? Passive voice, future tense. Subject plus shall or will plus be plus V3. I shall be loved. I shall not be loved. Shall I be loved? Shall I not be loved? You will be loved. You will not be loved. Will you be loved? Will you not be loved? He will be loved. He will not be loved. Will he be loved? Will he not be loved? She will be loved. She will not be loved. Will she be loved? Will she not be loved? It will be loud. It will not be loud. Will it be loud? Will it not be loud? We shall be loud. We shall not be loud. Shall we be loved? Shall we not be loved? You will be loved. You will not be loved. Will you be loved? Will you not be loved? They will be loved. They will not be loved. Will they be loved? Will they not be loved? Example sentences. I shall be loved by her. I shall not be loved by her. Shall I be loved by her? Shall I not be loved by her? Passive voice, present continuous tense. Subject plus am is are plus being plus V3. I am being loved. I am not being loved. Am I being loved? Am I not being loved? You are being loved. You are not being loved. Are you being loved? Are you not being loved? He is being loved. He is not being loved. Is he being loved? Is he not being loved? She is being loved. She is not being loved. Is she being loved? Is she not being loved? It is being loved. It is not being loved. Is it being loved? Is it not being loved? We are being loved. We are not being loved. Are we being loved? Are we not being loved? You are being loved. You are not being loved. Are you being loved? Are you not being loved? They are being loved. They are not being loved. Are they being loved? Are they not being loved? Example sentences. I am being loved by her. I am not being loved by her. Am I being loved by her? Am I not being loved by her? Passive voice, past continuous tense. Subject plus was, were plus being plus V3. I was being loved. I was not being loved. Was I being loved? Was I not being loved? You were being loved. You were not being loved. Were you being loved? Were you not being loved? He was being loved. He was not being loved. Was he being loved? Was he not being loved? She was being loved. She was not being loved. Was she being loved? Was she not being loved? It was being loved. It was not being loved. Was it being loved? Was it not being loved? We were being loved. We were not being loved. Were we being loved? Were we not being loved? You were being loved. You were not being loved. Were you being loved? Were you not being loved? They were being loved. They were not being loved. Were they being loved? Were they not being loved? Example sentences. I was being loved by her. I was not being loved by her. Was I being loved by her? Was I not being loved by her? There is no future continuous tense in passive voice. Passive voice, present perfect tense. Subject plus has or have plus been plus V3. I have been loved. I have not been loved. Have I been loved? Have I not been loved? You have been loved. You have not been loved. Have you been loved? Have you not been loved? He has been loved. He has not been loved. Has he been loved? Has he not been loved? She has been loved. She has not been loved. Has she been loved? Has she not been loved? It has been loved. It has not been loved. Has it been loved? Has it not been loved? We have been loved. We have not been loved. Have we been loved? Have we not been loved? You have been loved. You have not been loved. Have you been loved? Have you not been loved? They have been loved. They have not been loved. Have they been loved? Have they not been loved? Example sentences. I have been loved by her. I have not been loved by her. Have I been loved by her? Have I not been loved by her? Passive voice, past perfect tense. Subject plus had plus been plus V3. I had been loved. I had not been loved. Had I been loved? Had I not been loved? You had been loved. You had not been loved. Had you been loved? Had you not been loved? He had been loved. He had not been loved. Had he been loved? Had he not been loved? She had been loved. She had not been loved. Had she been loved? Had she not been loved? It had been loved. It had not been loved. Had it been loved? Had it not been loved? We had been loved. We had not been loved. Had we been loved? Had we not been loved? You had been loved. You had not been loved. Had you been loved? Had you not been loved? They had been loved. They had not been loved. Had they been loved? Had they not been loved? Example sentences. I had been loved by her. I had not been loved by her. Had I been loved by her? Had I not been loved by her? Passive voice, future perfect tense. Subject plus shall or will plus have plus been plus V3. I shall have been loved. I shall not have been loved. Shall I have been loved? Shall I not have been loved? You will have been loved. You will not have been loved. Will you have been loved? Will you not have been loved? He will have been loved. He will not have been loved. Will he have been loved? Will he not have been loved? She will have been loved. She will not have been loved. Will she have been loved? Will she not have been loved? It will have been loved. It will not have been loved. Will it have been loved? Will it not have been loved? We shall have been loved. We shall not have been loved. Shall we have been loved? Shall we not have been loved? You will have been loved. You will not have been loved. Will you have been loved? Will you not have been loved? They will have been loved. They will not have been loved. Will they have been loved? Will they not have been loved? Example sentences. I shall have been loved by her. I shall not have been loved by her. Shall I have been loved by her? Shall I not have been loved by her? That's the end of the English grammar lesson. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and tap the bell icon to stay updated.